Okay, so I'm going to start doing some documentary type Archie comic retrospectives. Don't worry, the channel is still primarily going to be dramatizations of kooky Golden Age public domain stories, but you gotta follow your passions, you know? So let's talk about Cricket Odell. Cricket is a long-running character dating all the way back to 1962, and although she's only made sporadic appearances, she's a perpetual fan favorite among hardcore Archie lovers. She's likable, friendly, energetic. She doesn't seem to have any real enemies or rivals, but she's best known for her one peculiar and thoroughly unique trait. She can smell money. She can tell exactly how much money you have on you purely by olfactory senses that are more refined than Wolverine's, if considerably more limited in scope. She can sniff out bills, coins, and even precious metals like a pig sniffs out truffles, and she's cute too. So where did this strange girl come from? We don't know, she just sort of pops up from time to time. But let's take a look at the history of this tremendously talented and patently kooky young woman. Cricket made her first appearance in Archie number 133 in a tale entitled Passing the Buck, written by Frank Doyle with art by Harry Lucy, one of the holy trinity of Archie artists. She literally barrels onto the scene when Betty drops a quarter, and we're introduced immediately to her dynamic personality. In Harry Lucy's stories, this girl is constantly on the move, spinning in midair, running in manic excitement. She's artistically dynamic. Betty already knows Cricket, though the rest of the gang is introduced to her. Although later stories would tone it down, in this first tale, Cricket doesn't simply detect money, she's in love with it, and anybody adjacent to it, developing rapid-fire crushes on Archie, Jughead, possibly Veronica, and even Mr. Lodge just because of the amount of cash on hand. Her high energy and obsession are off-putting even to Reggie, who I might remind you frequently asks out Midge because his horndog instincts outweigh his desire not to be beaten to a bloody pulp by Moose. This story implies that Mr. Lodge also has the same nose for money that Cricket does, and he's sad that Veronica didn't inherit it, but this particular idea doesn't come up again. Cricket would pop up again a couple months later in Archie's pal Jughead number 95 in a story entitled False Lead, story and art by Sam Schwartz. Cricket teams up with Jughead to find buried treasure and win a contest, but she's forced by the Chamber of Commerce to plug up her nose. Another great story, and Schwartz's Cricket has all the charm and energy of Lucy's. Also in this story, we learn that counterfeit money smells awful and that Cricket has a backup superpower. In Archie number 139, Cricket makes a two-panel cameo in a sort of alphabet book parody, although the characters aren't presented in alphabetical order and not every letter is represented. She doesn't pop up again for about a year and a half, suddenly appearing in Midvale in issue number 12 of She's Josie, and this is the best Cricket story. Written by Frank Doyle and illustrated by Dan DeCarlo, who redesigned Cricket to be frankly adorable. Just like with Betty back in Cricket's first appearance, Pepper knows Cricket from some time before this story, although everyone else is meeting her for the first time. And hey, Archie, Pepper and Cricket buddy comic, I'm serious, I got scripts ready to go. While DeCarlo's Cricket isn't quite as bouncy as Lucy's, he manages to bring her manic nature to the fore in his own way. It's in this story that we learn Cricket is an Omega-level mutant, as she's not only able to sniff a $1,000 bill Alexandra taped to the back of hapless love interest Albert, she's able to track him around the world because of it. And frankly, despite Alexandra being the bitchiest bitch in the Archieverse, I really like the Alexandra-Cricket dynamic, and it's a shame that this is Cricket's only appearance with the Josie cast. It was 4 years before we saw her again in Archie 196 in 1969 in a story entitled Scent of Success. Once again written by Doyle and illustrated by Lucy, we're given an interesting new look for Cricket and a very doubtful Dylan who can't rationalize Cricket's bizarre ability. It also lends a bit more evidence that Cricket might be crushing on Veronica. She is clearly plutosexual. Regardless, besides a few repeats in digests and such, we wouldn't see Cricket again until 1982, when she reappears in Laugh Comics number 374, A Nose for News, written by Doyle and illustrated by Stan Goldberg. This would be the start of a brief renaissance for Cricket in the early 80s, where we would also start to see her becoming less manic, and the focus of her character becoming almost entirely her unusual superpower. We'd see further appearances in Archie Pals and Gals number 164 and 165, Betty and Veronica number 324, in which Cricket garners the attention of Jason Blossom, Betty and Veronica number 325, and Life with Archie number 235. By this time, she was considered recognizable enough that she had a couple of her own puzzle pages in Archie's Laugh Out number 101, and then she vanished again for almost a decade. Cricket popped back into existence in Betty and Veronica's Spectacular number 25 in 1997, followed by Archie and Friends number 24, in which she seems to be developing a relationship with Frankie Valdez, but this never goes anywhere. She also pops up in a story in Archie's Christmas Stocking number 7 in 1999, celebrating Betty's birthday in Betty number 97. She bumps into Veronica in Veronica number 169, and then helps rescue Veronica in number 190. She helps solve a mystery in Betty and Veronica number 234, and by now this is becoming a theme. She helps other people, usually either Betty or Veronica, but is no longer initiating wacky hijinks on her own as she did in her earliest appearances. I mean, we could argue that she's matured, but really she's just become more of a plot device than a character. The next truly interesting twist with the character comes in Archie and Friends number 114, when an allergy leaves her unable to count money, but instead to predict how much money someone will have in the future. It's an okay story at best, but one that adds a much-needed twist to her gimmick and gives her back some agency as a character, except she then disappears halfway through and the story resolves without her in it. In 2011, the 4-part Battle of the BFFs ran through Betty, Veronica, and their shared title, putting Betty and Veronica on a game show where they have to choose which other of Riverdale's teen ladies are the best friends. Cricket is paired with Ethel, whom she hadn't even met on panel before this, although this, like several upcoming appearances, would really only feature her as part of a crowd and not do much with her individually. She makes a handful of Face in the Crowd cameos after this, none of them really giving us anything new with the character. Most recently, she shows up in Archie Double Digest number 288 in Sniffing Around by Dan Parent and Bill Golaher, who have inexplicably changed her main character feature from being able to smell money into being allergic to it. This isn't explained in story, it's just discussed as if it was always the way things were. The story is baffling. The girl who was formerly drawn to all things financial now can't stand to be around it. The girl whose initial attraction to Archie was based on his proximity to Veronica is now unable to be even near Veronica without sneezing herself into a coma. Yes, she's passed out from being around vast amounts of wealth before, but she's never been repelled by it. This is some sort of bizarro cricket who am due opposite of all earthly cricket things. Also, she's on a date with Archie, and she's only ever shown any romantic interest towards Archie, when he has Veronica's stench on him. But despite her rather ambiguous crushes, Cricket's friendship with Betty is by far her strongest relationship with the main cast, and she's often in Betty's company when she appears. Their friendship appears to be pretty strong despite Cricket's infrequent appearances, and more so as Cricket's screwball behaviors seem to have calmed down. Let the record show that I prefer the crazy old-school Cricket. But even still, she remains an entertaining little legacy character, one of the few tertiary characters from the 60s who still pops in and out today. I'm excited to see this kooky redhead wherever and whenever she pops up.